After 3 years of work, our follow-up to the Meat Eater Fish and Game Cookbook is here. It's the Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, campfire, and camp stove. Here is your book for everything that's best cooked or eaten outside. From grilling to open fire cooking to Dutch ovens to smokers to barbecue to backpacking meals to how to pull off the perfect fish fry, with pit stops along the way for lessons about Ice Age cooking methods and the best 5 ways to construct a cooking fire you can be proud of. And of course, we're focusing on wild game and fish here with over 100 recipes, including stuffed venison burgers 3 ways, wild duck with ahi verde sauce, a jerky made with cola, a gin and tonic made with fire-charred lemons, and grilled frog legs made with a sticky sweet sauce. This ain't your normal cookbook, so be prepared to be surprised. Get your copy now. For more info, visit themeateater.com or buy it wherever books are sold.
Hey guys, real quick, before we get to your Rut Fresh Radio episode for the week, I want to give you an update because if you are listening when this comes out, the week of October 10th through the 16th, 2022, you got to know that it is Whitetail Week over at Meat Eater. That means a whole bunch of stuff is on sale. All of the First Light Spectre apparel, the whitetail gear, the Solitude kit I wear, the Sanctuary, the Wick base layers, Source jacket, all my favorites, 20% off this week. 20% off. Here's another thing. If you buy that Source jacket, you get a free FHF chest rig. That is a sweet little tool. Here's another one. You buy a tethered Predator platform. That's the platform I use for all my saddle hunts. You buy that and you get a $50 First Light gift card. All sorts of cool stuff like that is going on over at the Meat Eater website, over at the firstlight.com website, FHF. Check it out, October 10 through 16, 2022. Got some good stuff cooking. All right, now to the show.
Welcome to Wired to Hunt's Rut Fresh Radio, bringing you the latest reports from the Whitetail Woods. And now, your hosts, Casey Smith and Tyler Jones.
This is Rut Fresh Radio, powered by Vortex Optics. This week, the common theme seems to be tough conditions in mid-October. However, if you can find the limited resource, you can for sure find the bucks.
This is Rut Fresh Radio, brought to you by Vortex Optics. I'm Tyler Jones, your host, and Casey Smith is with me as well. Everybody's favorite dude in this whole space, man.
Just like my little tiny space over here in the corner. Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
So we just got back from a trip, a long trip.
Can you call it just one trip?
I think so.
My goodness.
Yeah. Michael's shaking his head yes. He says that I was gone for 3 weeks. We spent a greater part of 10 or 11 days, maybe more, out. And we ended up hitting Nebraska and South Dakota. We talked about it last week. Nebraska was really successful. And South Dakota ended up being also successful.
Wowzers.
I'm pretty excited about that because that's another one of those episodes that we talked about going on the Meat Eater channel, which is a series that for now is called the Buck Truck. Mm-hmm. And it's a series that we're producing that should come out next year in 2023. So it'll hype you up next year. But in the meantime, we're sharing pictures on our Instagram of some of the success we've had. And we're going to talk a little bit about South Dakota here. But the full story goes down on the Element podcast. So you can definitely check that out if you want to go over to the Element, check that out. We would very much appreciate that. So with that said, what are your takeaways from South Dakota?
Don't ever assume something is easy in the hunting world.
Yep.
Because we've hunted South Dakota a few years and felt like it was like a dreamland. And this year, it was most definitely not a dreamland. It was somewhat complicated and difficult because of the tough conditions, just like the guys that we're going to talk to today. We've got Sam Hogan in Michigan, Jonathan Moreland from Arkansas, Jason Redd in North Carolina, and Jake Hofer in Illinois. And there's a real common theme across the country right now, and that is tough conditions. And that's what we were met with in South Dakota as well, particularly drought. I think that is something that's kind of fairly consistent across the country. Even these places that have had, some hurricane-type rains and stuff, we're dealing with drought. You can't just break a drought with one weather instance, right? It's got to be sustained rainfall. And that's exactly what we dealt with. The deer were on food sources hardcore.
It's weird because you think of drought as a water thing, right? And we had, the king of water, Tony, on the trip with us in South Dakota, Tony Peterson. You guys know him probably pretty well.
He's that guy that's on the Little Mermaid that has like the trident and stuff, right? The king of water.
Yep. That's him,
Tony,
Aquaman.
Yeah,
and he's been killing deer off water holes for forever. Well, the drought plays into that, you think, right? And certainly, I think deer could have been killed on water. We actually focused on that early as well, and then we realized throughout the trip, which this is part of the story we probably won't tell a whole lot about, but I had a lot of scouting time on this trip, and I realized, as these guys were out hunting and setting up and these things, that I was seeing a lot of deer on food, which you don't necessarily think of when you're thinking about drought. But really, what ends up happening in a drought is there's a lot less food on the landscape, and a deer can't just sit there and eat on an ag field all night. So it needs those native forage food sources to expand its diet, to just have better digestive process and all these things that are good for it, right? Different protein balances and these kind of things. So with that, these deer are definitely having to eat native browse, but there's a lot less of it on the landscape, so they can't just sit there and hammer this stuff. They have to go to these ag food sources that are man-made essentially. And we noticed corn was like the deal.
It was.
Which is weird because, also within some of these cornfields, they plant beans, and the beans were hammered too. You just didn't see them. You didn't notice it until you got out there.
They were on their tier 2 food source, which was the corn, because the beans are already gone.
That's right.
At some point in time, there was even some, I don't mean green beans, but like green-leafed soybeans.
Yeah.
Right? There was some of that still there, but you could tell that the leaves were gone. Like they weren't dead yet.
And that's part of their water intake, I would imagine.
It's like 90% of a deer's water intake comes from its food. Like we were talking about this the other night. Animals in general don't treat water the way that humans do. Our dehydration is that animals they're hydrated at that point in time. You look at the way a buck uses a scrape and what is coming out of him excrement-wise. Like, it's dark, right? And the way it's nasty. The way it's getting that way is it is viscous, as they say, okay? So it's thick. So, they just kind of have a different take on hydration, and it's very much more impulsive. And they will drink water. In fact, I killed a really nice Oklahoma buck over water last year in a drought situation. That video actually is on the YouTube channel for The Element. Just went out. If you want to go check that out, see what you can do over a water source. Particularly, actually, that was the late season, but all year long, you can have some good opportunities over water source. But don't think that drought means water source.
No, let me just say that video is insane. I'm just going to go ahead and say that because I can say it just because you had the thing happen to you. Man, it is.
You were also there.
Well, I was, and when like the title is jaw dropping footage, and I think of that because my jaw, I'm not like a dramatic person, and my jaw was dropped.
It was one of those times where we didn't know how to react after I shot the deer.
Yeah, it's wild.
And this is the thing, too, and y'all are a captured audience, so we can talk about this. It comes out as laughter sometimes, but it's just like a
relief.
We weren't
joy. Breathing for 25 minutes.
Yes, exactly. It's like, oh my goodness, it's an overload, sensory overload, and it's just it's worth going to see. But anyways, water is only one of the things that deer have to have, right? In fact, I had success in South Dakota over natural browse, but it was on a food to bed pattern as the deer were loafing on their way back to where they were going to bed that day.
Which is how I killed last year in South Dakota.
That's exactly right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's an effective thing that not many people talk about is the native browse coming back. It's like staging before bed pretty much, as opposed to staging before they go to a food source.
And we were dealing with pretty warm temps and deer that did not want to move in the evenings much at all.
PWTs.
That's right. And some VWTs even. So you add all that up together and you get a kind of abstract train of thought in the whitetail world that, hey, mornings are actually pretty good right now.
That's a good point.
You know, like we're actually texting with a friend here before we get on the podcast, and he's talking about how he loves hunting mornings, and, you know, the common thought is that mornings are bad in October. And I wouldn't say that you should just barrel off in somewhere and hunt a morning without any information, but if you know something good, like particularly us, we were seeing deer movement for the first hour and a half of daylight, but only like the last 15 minutes in the evening. Like, there's a lot more time to kill a deer.
Yeah.
And also, they're further away from their beds in the morning, and you can get into a place without disturbing stuff. Whereas in the evening, I mean, Hunter had some success in the evening, and but they had to be like 60 yards from the deer's bed.
Yeah.
And
they couldn't set up in a tree because they were so close to bed.
yes, exactly. Yeah. And, you know, that's all well and good, and that's cool to be close like that. And it's like a neat thing to talk about as a hunter, like, oh, I shot him from his bed or whatever. But you're going to mess that up more than you're going to get it right.
That's right. There's some stuff that's fun and cool in the whitetail world, but you're going to mess it up a lot.
Yeah.
You know, and with that said, man, I think, you know, these are thoughts about how to beat the October lull. Some of the things that we're trying to give you right now, and the way that we've seen it been beat in the last couple of weeks as we've gone through early October in Nebraska and South Dakota. So with that, we've got a couple of guys that have some thoughts about what's going to come up this week. Scale of 1 to 10 type stuff that you guys live for, right? And that gives you hope. And I think you're going to enjoy some of these interviews.
So, Tyler, before we get to that, give me your 1 to 10 for South Dakota over the next week.
Man, so this is obviously my experience. This is with the way we are hunting. It might be different on private because this is all on public land, but I think when I left, it was 29 degrees, and the deer were crawling from what I heard from people who stayed back a little bit and saw that morning. I think that if we continue in South Dakota, if it continues to get that kind of weather where you got frosty mornings, I think it's going to be really good because that just increases their need for food as they get colder, and there's only so much food on the landscape because of the drought, right? So they're going to be very much focused in and concentrated on that food. So I think if I was going to say 1 to 10, I'd put it like 6 to 7 probably.
That's kind of, I was in the 6 range. There is a decimal thrown out in this episode, so I'm gonna hold off on the decimals and let that guy have his time.
6.67.
That's right. But I would be in that, and maybe, you know, after you talk about it, I might be close to a 7. I just hate to give it that high of a number because that takes a lot, but it could be close because of the scrape activity we also saw.
I think there's a factor in there of like your potential to kill as opposed to just deer movement.
Yeah, I think your potential to kill is pretty high. I think that's what a lot
of people think is like when they think of that 1 to 10 number, they think of here, what is my potential to kill? And so it's more than like it being a 9 or 8 out of 10 and on the ultimate day movement or deer movement day. It's really like they're factoring in some of that, like, well, I kind of have them figured out right now, so I'm feeling pretty good, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And that's actually what we're trying to do here is to help you get them figured out before you even get to the woods. That's what Rut Fresh is all about. But I think that combine the food aspect with the scraping activity.
Yeah.
I killed over a scrape. The deer wasn't on the scrape, but the scrape was there. So you know the bucks are around, and they're doing bucky things. Hunter killed near a scrape.
Yeah. The deer came and checked the scrape, right?
He was trying to.
I think so.
Yeah. He hadn't made it. He didn't let him make it there. But that y'all going to have to just watch and
that
see
will release
about
on the Element Channel too.
That's right.
Pretty soon.
Spooky city.
It's going to be like Halloween before Halloween.
It is, dude. But we ran a decent amount of cell cameras while we were up there, and we were seeing a lot of scrape activity there too. And some of that stuff was right at legal shooting light, and I think as temperatures progress to get a little colder, you will see those deer being there in shooting light, and that's exciting because we like to shoot them, as they say. So let's talk to a few guys who actually have maybe been doing a little shooting and see what's going on around the country.
Okay, now now on the phone we got Sam. On the phone now, Sam Hogan. He loves making fun of me, but you know what? At least I call taco shells.
That's right.
Not pitas.
The Michigan pita flinger himself.
We both didn't do it right.
No, we didn't. Hey, what's been going on, man? Michigan been treating you right?
It has been. Season's off to a pretty good start, and I'm just happy to be in a tree again.
Do you get paid guide fees when you take your friends out and they shoot deer?
I have yet to profit on any of that, but I'm sure there's some sort of business venture I could probably.
You're pretty entrepreneurial, so
yeah.
I mean,
it's just fun.
Yeah, dude. Flip this deer stand. You know what I mean?
There you go.
Let's go.
We got the new HGTV video going here, man.
With the prices of some of these mobile rigs now, I probably could.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Well, so on that note, you're a pretty mobile guy. You get out, you get after it. You hunt a lot of public and private. Every once in a while, you send me a picture of a big deer you're after, and a lot of times you send me a picture of dead bucks that you've killed as well. You're a good hunter, very humble, and so we just want to pick your brain a little bit about what Michigan is like recently. You had some success recently, right?
Yeah, I actually shot a doe last night, and that's been good. I've been on a pretty good buck, especially by Michigan standards, probably around the 150-inch mark, which is the biggest I've had the luxury of chasing around here. But the doe was on a different piece of private that I could get the truck to a little easier than packing a doe out too terribly far. So,
yeah. Well, so what was that doe doing?
The doe was working a kind of your typical terrain feature break. And hidden a couple of these apple trees that are right on the edge of these thick kind of CRP areas with some oaks in them, and they browse around on oaks, but they really love the apples, so they'll pop out every once in a while. I passed a couple different younger bucks yesterday, and all kind of coming to this apple tree and then feeding out to kind of the main food source there is a giant apple orchard. So now, it's a little pre-snack.
Sure. I have listened to Mark Kenyon's podcast a few times, and the Michigan Pass actually just means they're too far to shoot, is what I understand. So
yeah. No, it got pretty warm, so I ended up dropping this one off at a processor, and I looked around. And I said, "Yep, it's Michigan. We're here."
That's cool, though, man. Congrats on the early season success and being able to get a little bit of meat. What do you think is going on in the woods of Michigan right now? Are deer still really hitting, some of the ag food sources and stuff?
Yeah, their corn is started to become hot early season when it's all green. It doesn't really have the draw. Beans are definitely winding down a little bit, but I still see them standing out there every once in a while. But acorns or oh shoot, I'm saying it wrong.
It's
you can
okay.
do it.
Hey, just do it. Just do it like you do it, man. Pitas, tacos, whatever.
There it is.
The acorns are still hot. But like I said, the apples are kind of tailing off, but if you've got a fresh apple tree, they're still eating them. But yeah, the beans are slowing down. Woody browse. I cut a couple shooting lanes on one of my private pieces, and I had two little bucks come in just mowing down the maple leaves. So they've been eating those too. So yeah, it's kind of transitioning to your typical fall food sources.
Sure. So will they be like in the next week or so? You think they'll start really focusing on those acorns?
Yeah, those acorns will be a real big hit. Especially if you can, I mean, everybody knows this, but the white oaks have the best acorns. But in some of these swampy spots, some of the pin oaks drop, and they love that too. So they don't. It's hard to, in where I'm from in southwestern Michigan, it's hard to pin down a good old acorn tree just because there's so many of them.
Yeah,
so
dime a dozen.
It's hard to figure it out, but they've been starting to put down a little more sign. Obviously rubs have been popping up since they've been losing velvet, or since they've lost velvet, and it's just getting hotter. They're starting to take more.
So, right now is a full moon time, and it's kind of going to start waning a little bit here. But do you see much of that affecting any of the October movement that you're looking at for bucks?
I'll be honest, I have not paid too much attention to it. I will say it was a very full moon last night, and I saw every buck that I've ever gotten on that trail camera on his feet.
Wow.
So that, I mean, that's a testament to how non-productive my trail camera's been. I shot a doe, but they've all been moving.
Yeah, that's cool. So Michigan, I'm assuming, is like a lot of the rest of the country, and it's had pretty dry summer and early fall. But I know Michigan has a ton of water. Are mosquitoes bad right now, and does that actually affect deer movement?
They were pretty bad early, but it's actually been pretty cold here.
Yeah.
This morning was 38 degrees, 39 degrees. And we have not had a mosquito problem in the last, it seems like when it gets that cold, they're gone. Now, right now I'm sitting in the truck at 67 degrees. So when I go out tonight, it might be I might change my tune on that, but last night was great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So coming up this week, looking at the moon affecting your trail camera movement, potentially cold fronts that are coming in, different food sources like acorns dropping and those kind of things,
apples,
and all of that. What would you say on a scale of 1 to 10? What would you predict the buck movement to be like in the next week or so?
We've got that cold front coming in on Thursday, so it'll be the day after this releases. We're recording this today, and it's about to get pretty warm, but then it drops back down. So we're after the release of this, it's only going to get better, and I love how October plays out. It seems to get better as the time goes on. So I'm going to give it a 6.5. We're throwing halves in here.
Dude, this is the second decimal of this whole podcast, and both have come in this week. So congrats on that, dude. You're very extraordinary.
Man.
Goes the extra lengths, man. That's what it is.
Hey, thanks for hopping on, man. Hopefully you'll get a crack at that target buck you've got, man, and we'll have to get you back on to talk a little bit about what you're seeing at that time. So best of luck this season, man.
All righty. Appreciate it. You guys too.
I've got Jonathan Moreland on the phone. He is a hunter in Arkansas. Man, what has been going on, dude?
Man, we've just trying to get the season kicked off, so been doing a little bit of hunting and mostly scouting. Not a whole lot of time in the tree, but a lot of time in the woods in the last week or so.
I got you. So you're a pretty accomplished hunter, particularly a traditional hunter. So I know that does actually make a little bit of difference to you as far as the way you scout and hunt, I would imagine. What are some things that you're really keen in on right now, trying to make sure you can get close range of these deer?
Right now it's a little different for the South from what I normally try to do. We've got abnormally dry conditions down here this year. It hasn't rained in almost 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So normally this time of year, I'm focusing on a hot feed tree, whether it be a persimmon or water oak or early dropping pin oak. But this year, the deer, they're really keen in on the water. So anywhere I can get close to a water source, I'm seeing quite a few deer.
Gotcha.
I actually killed a doe the other day coming to an old lake bed that's normally full of water, which is starting to dry up now. So anywhere you can get near water, it's just pretty good right now.
That's cool. Do you feel like deer use running water and standing water all the same, or do you have a particular type of water source you like to key in on?
Most of this where I'm at right now is standing because of the record low river levels right now. So it's just pockets of water. But, typically a deer, when it's down here in the South, we've got a lot of lush vegetation. So normally they can kind of get it throughout the woods, but right now they're having to come to it. Also with this dry weather, I'm noticing a lot of early dropping mass crops also. So like some of these acres are dropping earlier than normal.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's as far as buck activity so far, I've seen a few bucks, but it's still pretty slow right now.
What about scrapes? You looking at scrapes this time of year when you're out there scouting?
Made a big loop yesterday. Saw I think 7 or 8 scrapes yesterday, so they're just now kind of start getting going there.
Yeah. Will you focus on that going forward, or are you still going to be on the water?
No, I don't typically start focusing on that till later on in the year. Right now, it's still food sources and water right now with it being dry.
Yeah. Is your rut a typical rut compared to everybody else in the country?
So down here, I'm going to say that magic week is around that Thanksgiving week down here is the prime time.
Gotcha. So a little bit later, so that would make sense for some of the rut activity to be pushed back a little bit later too. What do you think about the moon stuff? You pay much attention to the moon? I know we're kind of coming off a big full moon right now, and a lot of guys are thinking about it.
I pay attention to it just because I'm curious. I do try to document, where the moon's at and what the deer activity I'm seeing. But typically, when I have the opportunity to hunt, I'm just, I'm hunting regardless. I don't really plan my hunts around the moon.
Yeah, I understand. That's exactly
so.
How
the
I look
moon's
at it.
terrible, and I've got an opportunity to hunt. I'm gonna be hunting.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
really
just
care what that moon's doing.
It's like a confidence booster, right? Like, oh, the moon's doing something good. I feel good about this hunt, but you're still going to go out there and. I mean, you're in the South, so and this is how I feel too, like it's a game of numbers sometimes, right? You just got to have your hangs in the tree, and sooner or later it's going to work out.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah, so what did you how'd that setup go for that doe that you killed, man? Were you hunting over food sources, or you said it was over water, right? Was there any ag anywhere near that?
Yeah, no. Well, there's some ag not far, but no, just caught her coming to an old lake. There's a willow flat in there, and just had a really good setup, some really good cover there on the edge of the lake bank, and there was a main trail coming where they were coming down there to hit that water, and just caught her off guard coming right to that water.
Gotta love it when the setup works perfect, right?
That's it.
A lot of the country is talking about cold fronts and stuff coming in the next week. Now in the South, we kind of get cool fronts more than cold fronts, and I think we're looking forward to like a 3 or 4 degree cooler morning than normal here in this next week. I don't know if things are much different where you're at, but with all that stuff considered and kind of compiling the information that you've already gained from scouting and previous experience, what do you expect the buck movement to be like over the next week?
So we have here in the South, which I'm in South Arkansas, we've got some fronts moving in. I believe it's Wednesday or Thursday. Cool front that's supposed to produce a precipitation. So, like I said, it hasn't rained down here in over 3 weeks. So, if we do catch a little rain, I would expect that to really get some deer up and on their feet. So, I expect it to increase just a little bit compared to last week.
Gotcha. So if you had to rate it between 1 and 10, what would you rate it?
I'm gonna give it about a 6.
Okay, that's a good conservative number. I like it though, but things are ramping up and kind of gearing towards that in the magic November we've got coming, man. So I appreciate the time today, dude, and I hope you have a great rest of the season.
Y'all too. Good luck to y'all.
After 3 years of work, our follow-up to the Meat Eater Fish and Game Cookbook is here. It's the Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, campfire, and camp stove. Here is your book for everything that's best cooked or eaten outside. From grilling to open fire cooking to Dutch ovens to smokers to barbecue to backpacking meals to how to pull off the perfect fish fry. With pit stops along the way for lessons about Ice Age cooking methods and the best 5 ways to construct a cooking fire you can be proud of. And of course, we're focusing on wild game and fish here with over 100 recipes, including stuffed venison burgers 3 ways, wild duck with ahi verde sauce, a jerky made with cola, a gin and tonic made with fire-charred lemons, and grilled frog legs made with a sticky sweet sauce. This ain't your normal cookbook, so be prepared to be surprised. Get your copy now. For more info, visit themeateater.com or buy it wherever books are sold.
Okay, so now on the phone we've got Jason Redd from Timber Ninja. You've been in the timber, being a ninja lately, out in North Carolina, right?
Yeah, North Carolina, and I did a trip to Illinois for 4 or 5 days, the scouting/hunting trip for the rut.
Nice, man. So you do some pretty cool stuff. This is kind of what originally caused you to create a super lightweight stick, but you spend a lot of time hunting deer really deep in kind of mountainous country, which people don't think of maybe when they think of a coastal area like that out east, but there's some pretty crazy hills. What have you been seeing in the hills lately, and how are the deer kind of moving around and reacting to cold fronts and what's going on right now?
Well, I mean, I live in a very low deer density area. So, I mean, we have one to 2 deer per square mile. So activity this year has been about normal. I mean, I've been focused on two target bucks this year, but we have had some really unseasonably cool weather. But we also have had a really big mass crop this year, so deer are pretty spread out. They don't have to move very far, but been seeing fairly good movement for this time of year, and getting closer and closer to one of my target deer. I feel how you get that gut feeling, you just know you're getting there, and with this weather that we have and being coming into mid-October, it's looking pretty positive.
How have you been hunting that deer? Are you hunting them based off of like movement patterns to and from oaks, or what are you looking at?
Yeah, well, he traditionally, I've been hunting for a few years. He traditionally travels. He's a home range deer in this area, so he likes the east facing side of this big long ridge, and he's a couple miles back, and so I know where his primary bed is, which is on private, unfortunately. So I'm trying to intersect him there, and he runs down a ridge and comes off a finger ridge and hits some public private land ag. So I've been trying to get as close as I can to his primary bed. Obviously, I'm kind of restricted there, but honestly, just trying to cut him off in between right now.
So we've actually spoken with a guy recently who seemed to think green food sources were pretty key when it comes to, private land ag. Is that the ag that he's inhabiting right now, or is he more on like corn or grain type stuff?
We don't have much corn, so yeah, it's all green pasture ground that he's on. And I'm a proponent, when you have a really big mass crop year, they can't just live off acorns.
Yeah.
They need that green to balance out their diet. So that's why I've been kind of honed in on him where I am right now. But he's laid some of his primary scrapes that he normally does. I mean, our deer there's not as much competition, so they don't leave as much sign as some of the other areas. So, but he kind of comes back to his home range, and the interesting thing is, I was talking to a guy this weekend about this, is you can really instigate a buck here by just open up a mock scrape in his home range. He will 90% of the time I can get a mature buck that I'm after if I know his home range by opening up, mock scrape myself. Within a couple of days, he'll be in there.
Man, I do love mock scrapes. It gets me hyped just knowing that I can do something like that to kind of manipulate deer. And as, one thing that's kind of synonymous across the country right now is the moon phase, right? Like people have different conditions all over the place. And I know a lot of guys put a lot of different weight on moon. Right now, we just are pretty much right on a full moon, and it's going to start waning as the next week goes on. Do you think about moon much, at least in October, when it comes to deer movement?
I'm not as big on moon phase as I am moon position.
Okay.
I do like moon position, and when you had the moon rise where it's been right there close, within an hour dark, that's usually pretty primo. And this morning, only thing I could hunt today was a morning hunt. So I just, you can't kill them if you're not after them. So I was in there, but coming out of that, I really like that time. So I'm thinking, into this week, next week, start looking pretty good.
Gotcha, man. So let's talk about the next week here. All right. So like you were saying, there's some cool fronts starting to move across the country. Moon's kind of waning a little bit. Deer are starting to get a little more ruddy. And, for some of that North Carolina stuff that you've been hunting, let's just kind of focus on that. What do you predict the buck movement to be like over the next week on a scale from 1 to 10?
I think from a 1 to 10 for this time of year, we should be somewhere around an 8. Because next week, I just looked at the weather, as we were talking, and we're supposed to get down in the high 20s next week, which is unseasonably cool for this time of year.
Yeah.
So we're having some lows there, and I don't run a lot of cell cameras, but I have buddies that do around here, and the buck movement just continues to increase. So I think it's looking pretty good for next week.
Man, that killer cold front that's headed this way is going to definitely rock some bucks worlds and have a lot of hunters in the woods, man. It's an exciting time of year. Jason, we really appreciate the update, dude, and I hope you have some success out there, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
All right, we've got Jake Hofer from Exodus. He is up in Illinois. He does a bunch of hunting up there, shoots really old bucks. Sometimes they're big, sometimes they're kind of medium, but they're always old. Jake, what's going on, man?
Not much. Excited to be on here, and I appreciate that intro. it's sometimes everyone brags like, oh, I'd rather shoot an old deer over a big deer.
Yeah.
You know what? I'd rather shoot a big deer at this point. I don't care if he's 4.
Yeah, that's how I am too, man. It's like I really do like shooting old deer, but I've shot a bunch of them, and sometimes they tend to be like, 120 inches, and all the people around you are shooting like 160s, and you're like, hey, he's old. Don't forget about me over here, and
That's funny.
Yeah.
So funny and so true.
So how has the last, couple of days of hunting here in Illinois been for you?
A lot better. We had a really good cold front here roll in Friday. And so hunted Friday morning, kind of tight to bedding on a mock scrape on a ridge with a lot of oaks. And I saw 6 bucks that morning, a lot of sparring, a lot of rubs. And it was it was great to feel the woods be alive with deer doing cool things. So that was really good. And then I actually have a couple buddies. One gentleman shot a really nice buck Friday evening on a green food source. And then I had a buddy miss a giant Saturday on a green food source as well. So it's it was good. If you're in the right location and you had a buck that you're chasing, it was a really good opportunity.
You make a point about the green food sources. You talked about oaks, but can you talk about what the green food source is and why that's important right now?
Yeah, so it seemed like clover was the king here. I know personally some more younger bucks were hitting the tops of brassicas, but clover definitely seemed to be the powerful food source. And then in particular, this one farm that I'm familiar with, the gentleman that missed a really big deer, they came in, ate the clover, kind of staged up in there, and then they headed on to cut cornfield. So that seemed to be the perfect recipe as they eat acorns all day. They want a little bit of moisture content in the evening.
Yeah, I don't blame them. I would not be very happy about eating acorns all day.
It's a good way to feel like you just got to mouth a meal, man.
Right.
So knowing you, I know that scrapes are on your mind, especially in October with these cold fronts rolling through. When do you start to shift that focus, and do you think that that's something that's coming soon?
It's definitely coming soon. So I mean, a lot of these new bucks are starting to show up on some of these farms, and then looking into the future here of a really good cold front coming through next weekend, like Sunday is kind of when it hits. I'll definitely be posted up on some scrapes here in the next 7, 8, 9 days. I think right now it's a really good idea to get some inventory on what bucks are kind of frequenting a scrape, and kind of try to line up an opportunity with the cold front rolling in. And last year, the 16th, 17th, 18th was actually really good for bucks hitting scrapes. Mm-hmm. It's always seems to be in coordination to a cold front, but that seems to be one of the first opportunities. If you don't have a buck living right on you, it's when they start to venture out a little bit, and then you still have a legitimate crack at them, and they feel just a little less random for the time being.
Mm-hmm. So with that coming up, scale of 1 to 10, looking at weather, moon, if you do that kind of thing, whatever you look at, all the variables, and what you saw last year and everything, how would you rank this next week in your mind, the potential of shooting a nice buck 1 to 10?
Man, it's up there. I'd say, 8.2. I mean, it's gonna be really good.
Decimals.
Welcome to the decimal club, guys. First time we've had that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no rookie scores here. So I would say, it's going to be one of the best fronts of the year. I really do think so. Hopefully we'll get another front closer to the end of October, which will be fantastic. And then, obviously that first really good front in November is going to be awesome too. But I mean, this is going to be a top 3 or 4 front in my opinion.
Man, that's exciting.
Wow. Okay. So now I'm like looking at my calendar. We're trying to reorganize things, man. Golly. That's wild. That's exciting.
Last time I listened to you about a cold front in October, I shot a really big 8-point, man. So I'm going to listen again, I think.
Stay tuned. I think you guys are going to find success. I can find big deer. Killing them has still been pretty hard for me. So, but it'll be good.
Whatever, dude. You're a killer. You're a killer. Humble killer, man.
Yeah, well, we appreciate the good info, Jake. Thanks, man, and I hope you do get after that big buck this week.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
The October lull can be a little spooky, But if you have the right information, you'll be able to throw it down on a big buck. So if you are interested in big bucks and you might want to watch some things to either get you hype or to help you learn how to get closer or to stay more comfortable while you're in the woods, you should check out the Oklahoma public land buck video that the Element has on its channel. There's also a piece on layering that our friend Mark Kenyon put out to help you stay warm while you're out there chasing those big dogs. And then Tony has a pretty cool Foundations podcast that's all about hunting to kill as opposed to hunting to just hunt. So be sure and check that stuff out. Keep it fresh. This has been Rut Fresh.
After 3 years of work, our follow-up to the Meat Eater Fish and Game Cookbook is here. It's the Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, campfire, and camp stove. Here is your book for everything that's best cooked or eaten outside, from grilling to open fire cooking to Dutch ovens to smokers to barbecue to backpacking meals to how to pull off the perfect fish fry, with pit stops along the way for lessons about Ice Age cooking methods and the best 5 ways to construct a cooking fire you can be proud of. And of course, we're focusing on wild game and fish here with over 100 recipes, including stuffed venison burgers 3 ways, wild duck with ahi verde sauce, a jerky made with cola, a gin and tonic made with fire-charred lemons, and grilled frog legs made with a sticky sweet sauce. This ain't your normal cookbook, so be prepared to be surprised. Get your copy now. For more info, visit themeateater.com or buy it wherever books are sold.